already one of the poorest countries in the world before the regional proxy war took over the country. The Saudi-led war on Yemen is now into its 4th year.
Here in Yemen, the UN says 22 million people are in need of assistance. That's 3/4 of the entire population. Even worse, 8 million are now on the brink of starvation. In November last year, experts warned that 150,000 malnourished children could die in the coming months, unless aid is allowed into Yemen unrestricted. Months later, those restrictions are still in place. We've come to Yemen, a country in the grip of the worst humanitarian crisis on Earth. On the ground, it's hard to say which side is winning, but with each day that passes, it becomes clearer who's losing. In a crush of desperate parents and small, hungry children, little Shamouk Mohammed sticks out, her tired, hollow eyes and fragile body cradled in her father's arms. Starvation is taking its toll. She's so weak, she can't even stand long enough for medics to get her measurements. At 14 months old, the little girl weighs just 13 pounds.
The doctor is essentially measuring the circumference of the top of her arm around what is her bicep. We can see here it's just crossed over into the red, which is severely malnourished. You look worried about her.
Shamouk's father tells us he's afraid, not just for his baby girl, but also her 5 brothers and sisters, all of them underweight, all of them hungry.
You look very thin, sir. What are you giving to your children to eat? What are you eating yourselves?
Does
it make her very agitated? She cry? How does it affect her?
Shamouk and her family are sent home with a bag of protein packs. It'll be the only help they get until the team's back next week. There are no clinics, no doctors. No one else is helping.
We will notice that the children, once they're put into the nutrition program, even after they've recovered, they're back after 6 weeks because they just don't have sustainable access to food.
We're in the good hands of God. People are sick for years. We have done nothing to be in this situation. We're just citizens here. We have nothing but God.
Why should I care about what's going on here?
Fundamentally because we're all people. Kids are kids, parents are parents. We're all making the same decisions. We all want the same things. Our behavior in this war is a stain on America's reputation.
Here, even food is considered a weapon of war. You can just see how hungry little Mohammed is and how much he's clearly enjoying this protein pack. It's called Plumpy Nut. It's being provided here by the International Rescue Committee. And just to show you how civilians are being used in the conflict here in Yemen, there was a boatload of this Plumpy Nut that was due to dock in Yemen, but the Saudi-led coalition stopped them from coming to port because they said that this protein pack could be used by fighters instead. Some shipments are eventually allowed in, but it's just a trickle of what's needed, forcing parents in Yemen to make heartbreaking choices. Has anyone here had to make a decision between medicine and food for your children?
I would say I'll see you in the morning, but I know all the good will be gone. It is clear you sadly have to leave now, so I'll wave goodbye, good heart.
Violence has forced more than 3 million Yemenis from their homes since the war started in 2015. Many end up in squalid camps like this. Here, young and old struggle in the dirt and the dust.
Ahmad and his 5 children who fled their home due to Saudi Arabia's airstrikes 2 years ago have since lived in this camp in the coastal city of Hodeidah. Because of a serious shortage of food, they can barely find something to eat to break their fast.
We have been forced to leave our region in Hais in the western coastline of Hodeidah due to the Saudi daily bombardment. Our life here is difficult as we have lost our source of living. We do not receive any kind of humanitarian assistance as our children are forced to collect leftover from restaurants, and sometimes we are forced to eat plant leaves.
Thousands of families like Ahmad's family are forced to flee their homes in the coastal areas and face uncertain future.
The suffering of refugees here is immense, as you fear for your safety first and then how to feed your family.
Yemen Public Health Association has warned of a dire humanitarian and economic situation in Hodeidah, saying malnutrition in the city has reached alarming levels. Saudi's attacks on roads, bridges, factories and even trucks loaded with goods have troubled Yemen's already fragile economy.
Saudi Arabia is destroying our factories, food supplies, ports and even farms to make us suffer, but will we stand up to them?
Once a business hub, Hodeidah now is nothing but a dead city due to Saudi Arabia's deadly war against Yemen.
Saudi Arabia launches airstrikes on Hodeidah seaport regularly. The recent increase in bombardments are aimed at tightening the blockade. The move will have devastating impacts on the lives of Yemeni civilians.
Last week, UN Aid Chief Mark Lowcock urged Saudi Arabia to allow food and fuel imports. He warned that a further 10 million Yemenis could face starvation by the end of 2018, in addition to 8.4 million already severely short of food. Saudi Arabia accuses Ansar Allah forces of smuggling arms through Hodeidah. However, Yemenis say that is only a pretext.
Everything that enters Hodeidah seaport comes from seaports of invading countries in Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. Every vessel goes through the inspection of Saudi military vessels deep in high seas.
The recent rise of Saudi airstrikes on Hodeidah seaport has further hindered the flow of aid supplies and basic goods into Yemen. Hodeidah is the only operating sea gates that remains under the threat of constant Saudi bombardment.
As many as 600,000 civilians are currently living in and around Hodeidah. He said the port city is the single most important point of entry for food and basic supplies into war-ravaged Yemen. Meanwhile, the International Committee of the Red Cross also expressed misgivings over the situation in Yemen.
This hospital is in the Houthi-controlled port city of Hodeidah, vital to getting aid and supplies into the country. But fighting nearby is threatening to close the lifeline to millions of Yemenis.
The humanitarian coordinator in Yemen, Liz Grande, says that a military attack or siege on Hodeidah will impact hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians. Humanitarian organizations have rushed to develop a contingency plan. In a prolonged worst case, we fear that as many as 250,000 people may lose everything, even their lives.
Some aid agencies, such as the Red Cross, have sent staff home because of security concerns, leaving millions at the mercy of a political war with no end in sight. And aid agencies describe what is happening in Yemen as the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
The situation has become so complex with a series of threats and security situations that are very difficult to read. And you know, one of our colleagues was killed last month, and the risk of other security incidents led us to take the decision to withdraw most of our international team, 70 people.
Meanwhile, Saudi warplanes continue to target civilian areas across Yemen on a regular basis. Over 14,300 people have been killed since Saudi Arabia launched its war on Yemen in March of 2015.
I haven't witnessed such a crisis before. People here have been subject to the ruthless invasion by the Saudi regime. We can't buy what we want for our families.
People are still suffering in everything, lack of services. There is no regular income on monthly basis. The life in general is still dead.
We are lucky enough to actually encounter and have access to a lot of young Yemeni women and men who care about their country, who are tired of the war, and also tired of the narrative of the war and the image of their country being projected outside, and they want to do something about it. And that's why I think it's a moral responsibility for everybody to help these young people, because they don't deserve this.
We ask any parties engaged in this conflict to respect humanitarian law, respect the rights of innocent people, and give us the access that we need to provide the help that's needed.
It is clear you sadly have to leave now. So